You're just taking up space here, old man. Get lost. My son Lucas stood there silent while his wife destroyed me with those words. They kicked me out in a snowstorm after I'd given them everything: my house, my savings, my entire life. I spent freezing nights in my car eating scraps, dodging security guards who treated me like garbage. Just when I thought I'd lost everything, a man in $1,000 suit tapped on my window. Are you Caleb Morgan? The conversation that followed was so unbelievable, I thought I was dreaming. But it was real, and my son was about to pay for his cruelty. What that mysterious man told me next will shock you, but before we continue, comment below and tell me where you're watching from today. It all started on a December night in Denver, Colorado, when the snow was falling so hard you couldn't see past the streetlights on Oakwood Drive. The Rocky Mountains loomed invisible in the darkness beyond our suburban neighborhood, and the temperature had dropped to -5 degrees, typical Colorado winter, that could freeze your soul if you weren't careful. I was sitting at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped Lucas with his homework for 12 years, watching frost creep across the windows of 2847 Oakwood Drive. This house had been my world for 30 years. Every creaking board, every paint chip, a memory of the life I'd built after Beth passed away. Lucas walked in with that corporate stride he'd developed, Gabrielle clicking behind him in designer heels. Both wore expressions I'd never seen before: cold, businesslike, determined. "Dad, we need to talk," Lucas said without sitting down. "Of course, son. What's on your mind?" Gabrielle stepped forward, arms crossed. "Caleb, Lucas, and I need our own space. We're starting a family." The way she said my name, not Dad, not even Mr. Morgan, sent a chill through me, colder than the Colorado wind outside. "This house has plenty of room for everyone." Lucas finally looked at me. "Dad, you're getting older. Maybe it's time for assisted living, somewhere with proper care." Assisted living, Lucas. I'm 65, not 95. I taught school until last year. I can take care of myself. "We need space for a nursery," Gabrielle interrupted with her lawyer voice. "This house is too small. This is my house," I said, feeling everything I'd built starting to crumble. "I raised you here after Beth died. Every board, every nail. Actually, Dad, it's not your house anymore." Lucas's words hit like ice water. "Remember those papers you signed 6 months ago? You transferred the deed to me, for my credit history." The memory crashed over me. I had signed those papers. Lucas said it was temporary, just financial strategy. He'd promised nothing would change. "That was supposed to help with your finances," I whispered. "You said it was just paperwork?" "Plans change, Caleb. We can't wait any longer. You need to leave tonight." I searched Lucas's face for any trace of the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who'd cried in my arms when Beth died. That boy was gone. "Lucas, please. I sacrificed everything for you. Turned down promotions, worked double shifts, sold Beth's jewelry for your college. This house is all I have left of our family." Something flickered in Lucas's eyes, but Gabrielle touched his arm and his expression hardened. "Dad, that was your choice. No one asked you to make those sacrifices. We can't have you becoming a burden as we get older." The word burden echoed in the silence. Outside, snow continued falling on the Denver suburb where I'd lived for 3 decades. 2 hours later, I was loading my belongings into garbage bags. My clothes, a few photos, Dad's watch, and the quilt Beth made when Lucas was born. Everything else would stay with them. Walking to my 2005 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles, I heard Lucas call from the doorway. "Dad, Don't, Lucas, just don't." I threw my bags in the back seat and started the reluctant engine. Backing out of the driveway I'd shoveled countless times, I watched Lucas close the door in my rearview mirror. As I sat in that freezing Honda watching my son close the door on 35 years of love, I felt completely alone in the world. I had no idea that my life was about to change in ways I could never imagine. The leather seat felt like ice against my back, and my breath fogged the Honda's windshield. Sitting in that cold car, I couldn't help but remember how different Lucas used to be back when he called me his hero, before money and success turned his heart to stone. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, the wind rattled the windows. So I stared at the old photo tucked behind my driver's license, Lucas, at age 7, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a drawing of our family. The memory pulled me back to 1995. Beth lay in that hospital bed at Presbyterian St. Joseph, her red hair thin from chemotherapy. The cancer had spread faster than anyone expected. "Promise me you'll take care of Lucas," she whispered. 10-year-old Lucas sat clutching his Game Boy. When Beth closed her eyes for the last time, he threw himself into my arms, sobbing. Daddy, don't leave me like Mommy did. Never, son, never. Those first months were brutal. Lucas would wake screaming from nightmares, and I'd hold him until dawn. I learned to braid hair pack, lunches with crusts, cut off to be both mother and father to a grieving little boy. 5 years later, Superintendent Morrison offered me a promotion in Colorado Springs, double the salary. Dad, you should take it, 15-year-old Lucas said. We need the money. But I saw the fear in his eyes, the same fear from that hospital room. Lucas had already lost his mother. I couldn't uproot him from his only stability. My son needs consistency more than money, I told Morrison. That night, Lucas hugged me tight. You're the best dad in the world. By 2005, Lucas was accepted to MIT, his dream school and my financial nightmare. I started tutoring wealthy kids in Cherry Hills Village, driving across town every evening after teaching. Dad, I got in. Lucas's voice crackled with excitement over the phone. MIT accepted me? I cried that night, tears of pride mixed with panic about paying for it all. The transformation happened gradually. Lucas graduated summa cum laude in 2010, landed a 6-figure tech job, and our phone calls became shorter. I'm really busy, Dad, became his standard response. When he married Gabrielle in 2015, I barely recognized my son in his designer tuxedo. At the reception, he introduced me as my father, the retired teacher, not with pride, but almost apologetically. The final blow came when he suggested I sign over the house deed. It's just for my credit history, Dad. Nothing will change. But everything had already changed. The little boy who used to run to me with scraped knees had become a stranger who saw his father as an inconvenience. Now shivering in this car, I pulled out that old photo again. The paper was worn soft from years in my wallet, but Lucas's 7-year-old smile was still bright and full of love. As dawn broke over Denver, I stared at that old photo of Lucas as a little boy smiling and gap-toothed calling me his hero. That little boy was gone forever, and I didn't know if I'd ever get him back. Dawn had broken over Denver, but now darkness was falling again and I had nowhere to go. If you've never slept in your car in a Walmart parking lot during a Colorado winter, let me tell you, it's not just cold, it's soul-crushing. I'd been driving around for 3 hours burning gas I couldn't afford to waste looking for somewhere safe to spend the night. Every parking lot seemed too exposed, every side street too dangerous. Finally, I pulled into the Walmart on South Federal Boulevard. At least it had light security cameras and stayed open 24 hours. I parked in the farthest corner, away from the main entrance, and tried to make myself invisible. Using an old beach towel I'd found in my trunk, I covered the side windows and settled into the back seat. The Honda's interior felt like a refrigerator, and every gust of wind rocked the car like a boat in a storm. How did my life come to this? I whispered to no one. Around 11 p.m., a gentle tap on my window nearly gave me a heart attack. A middle-aged man with a graying beard peered through the glass, his breath visible in the frigid air. Hey there, first night, he asked when I cracked the window. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I'm Marcus, he said. Welcome to our neighborhood, I guess. Within minutes, a small woman bundled in multiple coats appeared beside him. I'm Betty, she said with a surprisingly warm smile. Don't look so scared, honey. We look out for each other here. Marcus explained the unwritten rules. No loud noises after 10 p.m. Move your car by 6 a.m. before the morning patrol. And always park near the cart. Returns where the lights were brightest. Betty shared half a peanut butter sandwich, insisting I take it despite my protests. McDonald's on Colfax has clean bathrooms, and they're open all night, Marcus told me. The YMCA on Broadway sells day passes for $10 if you need a shower. I was amazed by their kindness. These people who had so little were sharing what they could with a complete stranger. How long have you been, I started to ask. Living the dream, Betty laughed bitterly. 2 years for me. Lost my apartment when I got sick and couldn't work. The 3 years, Marcus added. Used to be a civil engineer. Funny how fast everything can disappear. Around 2 a.m., heavy footsteps crunched through the snow outside my car. A harsh voice cut through the night. Hey, old man, open up. I froze my heart hammering against my ribs. Through the fogged window, I could make out a thin figure in a dirty jacket swaying slightly. I know you got money in there. The voice was slurred, desperate. Don't make me break this window. The car door handle rattled violently. I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to control my breathing, playing dead and praying he'd move on. Ray, move along, buddy? Marcus's voice was calm but firm. A flashlight beam swept across my windshield. Mind your own business, Marcus. This is my business. Go sleep it off. There was a tense moment of silence before I heard footsteps retreating. Marcus tapped gently on my window. "You okay in there?" I rolled down the window with shaking hands. "Thank you," I managed. "Ray's not a bad guy, just desperate. Addiction's a hell of a thing." The rest of the night passed in fitful dozing. Every sound made me jump car doors, slamming engines, starting the distant hum of traffic on Federal Boulevard. I thought about my warm bed on Oakwood Drive, the security system I'd installed, the locked doors that had kept the world at bay. "I taught kids for 30 years, I whispered to the darkness. "Now I'm hiding in a car like a criminal. Would Lucas even notice I was gone? Or was he already planning how to redecorate my old bedroom?" At 6 a.m. sharp, a security guard's flashlight tapped on windows throughout the parking lot. Sorry folks, you know the drill," called Tommy, a young guy who looked barely old enough to drink. His voice was apologetic, but firm. As I started my engine, Marcus appeared at my window one last time. "You'll be okay, teacher. Just take it one day at a time." I stared at him in surprise. "How did you know I was a teacher?" Marcus smiled sadly. "Takes one to know one. I used to be an engineer." As I drove away from that Walmart parking lot, I made myself a promise I would survive this. I had to. Little did I know that survival was just the beginning. A week had passed since that first terrifying night at Walmart, and I was discovering something unexpected. They say humans can adapt to anything. After 7 days of living in my Honda, I learned the bitter truth of those words and discovered a whole invisible world I never knew existed. The library became my sanctuary with its clean restrooms and warm reading rooms. I learned to time my visits perfectly, arriving at 9, leaving before the afternoon rush, when the homeless population became obvious. In the men's restroom, I perfected the art of washing without looking like I was bathing. Quick splash of water, paper towels, a disposable razor from the dollar store. The mirror reflected a man I barely recognized. Hollow cheeks, tired eyes, clothes never quite clean. "Sir, are you all right?" Linda, the middle-aged librarian, asked one morning. "I see you here every day." My face burned with shame. "My apartment's being fumigated," I lied. "Should be done soon." She nodded with kind eyes that didn't believe me. "Well, you're always welcome here." Food was another challenge. The Cherry Creek Mall's food court became my hunting ground, not for fresh meals I couldn't afford, but for abandoned leftovers. Half-eaten sandwiches, untouched fries. I timed visits during lunch rush when waste was highest. "Sir, you can't loiter here," James the security guard would say. "Just waiting for my wife to finish shopping," I'd reply, gesturing toward Nordstrom. My salvation came from Maria's Panaderia on Federal Boulevard. Every evening she'd set aside day-old bread. "Take these millo," she'd say, pressing a bag into my hands. "They're still good." "I can pay," I'd insist, though my wallet held only $23. "No charge. Everyone needs help sometimes." Her kindness made me cry afterward. Sleeping meant constant games with law enforcement. Officer Rodriguez patrolled the King Soopers lot nightly. "Can't sleep here, sir," he'd say, tapping my window. "Just resting my eyes, officer." "I get it, but store policy is store policy." I learned the rotation hospital, parking until midnight. All-night Denny's, until 3 a.m. gas stations until dawn. Each location had risks, rules, brief windows of safety. At the hospital, security would ask, "Family member," waiting for test results. I'd lie another piece of dignity crumbling. The loneliness was worst. Watching families laugh together outside Target, I'd call Lucas's number. "Lucas, it's Dad. Just wanted to hear your voice." He never called back. Some nights I'd stare at the sleeping pills in my glove compartment, leftovers from when Beth was sick. Would anyone notice if I was gone? It was during one dark moment, parked at the library on Thursday afternoon, that something strange happened. I was pretending to read a newspaper when a man in an expensive suit approached my car. He peered through the passenger window, then walked around to check my license plate, writing in a small notebook. My heart hammered as I held the newspaper higher. After 2 minutes, he tucked the notebook away and walked to a black sedan parked nearby. "Who was that?" I whispered. "What did he want?" That night, as I settled into my Honda's back seat, I kept thinking about the man in the expensive suit. In a week of being invisible, he was the first person who seemed to actually see me. I had no idea who he was or why he was looking for me. Tuesday morning arrived gray and cold, but for the first time in a week, I felt routine. I was parked at the library preparing for another day of pretending to be normal when everything changed. The knock on my car window at 9 a.m. was gentle, almost polite. I never expected those 4 words to change everything. "Are you Caleb Morgan?" I looked up to see the same man in the expensive suit who'd been checking my license plate. My heart raced as I cracked the window. "Who's asking? I'm not doing anything wrong." "Please don't be alarmed," he said calmly. "My name is Montgomery Price." He handed me a business card, Hartwell and Associates Estate Law. I stared at the embossed lettering, confused. "What do you want with me?" "Mr. Morgan, I have extraordinary news. You've inherited a substantial sum of money." My first instinct was to laugh. "If this is a scam, you picked the wrong guy. I'm living in my car." Montgomery remained serious. "The inheritance comes from Remington Cross." The name hit me like a physical blow. Remington. "But we lost touch 40 years ago. How do you know about him?" "He was my client. He passed away 3 months ago and left specific instructions about finding you." "This has to be a mistake. Mr. Cross built a real estate empire worth over $50 million. Montgomery continued. "Never married, no children, no close family. But he never forgot his childhood friend, Caleb Morgan. Suddenly I was 12 again, sitting in Remington's treehouse in Cherry Hills Village. We were both outcast me because my dad was the school janitor and because his father constantly called him worthless. We made a pact," I said, the memory flooding back, "in his treehouse. Said if either of us got rich, we'd share with the other." Montgomery smiled. He remembered that promise. "He told me you were the only person who believed in him when he had nothing." Tears stung my eyes. His father was awful. I told Remington he'd prove his dad wrong someday. He did, and he never forgot who stood by him. "Would you come to my office? We have paperwork to review." I looked at my wrinkled clothes. I'm not exactly dressed for a law office. "Mr. Morgan, you're about to inherit $47 million. I think they'll overlook your attire." The ride downtown felt surreal. Hartwell and Associates occupied the 25th floor of a gleaming skyscraper. The receptionist, Jennifer, smiled professionally. "Mr. Price is expecting you." Montgomery's office overlooked the city with the Rocky Mountains visible beyond. I felt dizzy looking at the marble floors, oil paintings, leather-bound books. "Please sit," Montgomery said, opening a thick folder. "Let me read Remington's will." His voice became formal. "To Caleb Morgan, my childhood friend who taught me that friendship matters more than money, and who believed in me when no one else would I leave $47 million in stocks, bonds, and real estate holdings." The numbers didn't seem real. I'd been worried about my last $23. "There are conditions," Montgomery continued. "Proper identification, background verification. It'll take a few days to process, but I can advance you funds immediately for basic needs." "This feels like a dream," I managed. "It's very real, Mr. Morgan. Remington wanted to take care of you. He said you were the brother he never had." As I walked out of that law office 2 hours later, my legs shaking, I realized that in one morning I had gone from homeless to multimillionaire. But the first person I wanted to tell wasn't celebrating with me. He was the same son who had thrown me out in the cold. 1 week had passed since I'd signed the final paperwork, making me worth $47 million, and I was discovering the truth about money and power. They say money can't buy happiness, but let me tell you what it can buy: the perfect revenge. And I was about to serve it ice cold to my son. The Ritz-Carlton Denver had become my temporary home, and what a difference a week made. The presidential suite overlooked the entire downtown skyline with the Rocky Mountains, rising majestically in the distance. I stood in the marble bathroom looking at myself in the mirror after my first real hot shower in weeks. "I forgot what hot water felt like," I murmured, running my hand through my freshly cut hair. The concierge James had become my personal assistant. "What can we arrange for you today, Mr. Morgan?" he asked when I called downstairs. "I need a complete makeover," I told him. "Clothes, grooming, everything." "Certainly, sir. I'll arrange appointments immediately." By afternoon, I was walking through Brooks Brothers like I owned the place. The sales associate, a polished young man in his 30s, helped me select a $4,000 charcoal suit with Italian leather shoes to match. "You have excellent taste, sir," he said, adjusting the jacket shoulders. I bought 3 suits, a Swiss watch, gold cufflinks, silk ties, and a leather briefcase that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The total came to $15,000. "Will that be cash or credit, Mr. Morgan?" "Credit," I said, sliding over my new platinum card. "It's all pocket change now." Looking in the fitting room mirror, I barely recognized myself. Gone was the desperate homeless man. In his place stood someone who commanded respect. The next morning I sat across from Montgomery in his law office, and his expression was priceless. "You look like a completely different man," he said. "I feel like one. Now I need your help with something personal." "Of course. What can I do?" "I want to buy back my house." Montgomery raised an eyebrow. But Lucas doesn't know about your inheritance. Exactly. I want it to be a complete surprise. I leaned forward. Can we set up a shell company? Make me an anonymous buyer. Montgomery looked uncomfortable. This is unusual, Caleb, but perfectly legal. My son threw me out like garbage, Montgomery. Time for him to learn what that feels like. Next, I hired Detective Mike Sullivan, a retired police officer who now worked private investigations. I need everything you can find about Lucas Morgan's financial situation, I told him. Mike's report was even better than I had hoped. Your son's in deep trouble, Mr. Morgan. $95,000 in credit card debt behind on mortgage payments. His wife's law practice is hemorrhaging clients, so they need money desperately. Looks like it. The house is worth maybe $200,000 in today's market. Perfect. The final piece was Jennifer Walsh, a real estate agent I'd found through Montgomery's contacts. I have a client interested in 2847 Oakwood Drive, I told her over the phone. He's prepared to offer $400,000. There was a pause. That's double the market value. What's the catch? No catch. Cash sale, quick closing. My client is a very private businessman who prefers to remain anonymous until the paperwork is signed. Mr. Morgan, they'll jump at this offer. When can we close? As soon as possible. I'm eager to meet the sellers. That evening I sat in my hotel suite sipping 20-year-old scotch and watching the city lights twinkle below. My phone rang Jennifer with the news I'd been waiting for. They accepted, she said excitedly. Lucas and Gabrielle Morgan want to close Friday afternoon. They're thrilled about the price. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Excellent. Make sure everything is ready for the big reveal. As I hung up the phone, I raised my glass in a toast to the empty room. My son was about to learn that karma has a very long memory, and sometimes it comes with Remington's inheritance. Friday afternoon arrived with crystal clear skies and perfect Colorado sunshine streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Hartwell and Associates. The closing was scheduled for 2 p.m. on the 25th floor, and Lucas had no idea he was about to sell his house to the father he'd thrown away like garbage. I waited in Montgomery's private office, watching through the glass doors, as Lucas and Gabriel stepped off the elevator at exactly 2 o'clock. Both were dressed in their best clothes, practically glowing with excitement. I still can't believe someone's paying double market value, Lucas said to Jennifer as they walked toward the conference room. This will clear all our debts and give us a fresh start, Gabriel added, clutching his arm. Jennifer beamed. Your buyer will join us shortly. He's reviewing some final documents with Mr. Price. Do we know anything about this mysterious benefactor? Lucas asked, straightening his tie. Montgomery, who had joined them in the conference room, maintained his professional composure. He's a very successful businessman who values his privacy, prefers to let his actions speak for themselves. As long as his check clears, I don't care if he's Batman, Gabrielle laughed. God, we needed this break, Lucas said. Finally, something good happens to us. I stayed hidden in Montgomery's office, letting them settle in, letting their excitement build to a fever pitch. Through the glass, I watched Karen Mills, the notary public, begin explaining the documents. This is straightforward, Karen said. Once you sign the deed, transfer ownership passes immediately to the buyer. Lucas was practically bouncing in his seat. Just show me where to sign. I watched in silence as my son eagerly signed away his security, his future, his arrogance. Each signature was like music to my ears. There, Lucas said with a flourish, setting down his pen. It's officially done. Gabrielle clapped her hands together. We're finally debt-free. I can't believe this is really happening. Now we just need to meet our mysterious buyer, Lucas said, looking around expectantly. That was my cue. I straightened my $4,000 suit, took a deep breath, and walked toward the conference room. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the door handle, not from nerves, but from anticipation. The door opened and I stepped inside. For a moment the room was perfectly silent. Lucas and Gabrielle looked up expectantly, their faces still glowing with joy from their financial salvation. Then I slowly removed my sunglasses, letting them see my face clearly. Hello, son, I said quietly. I'm your buyer. The transformation was instantaneous and complete. Lucas's face went from elated to confused to horrified in the span of 3 seconds. He gasped, his voice cracking like a teenager's. Gabrielle's mouth fell open, her hand flying to her chest. What is this? I remained perfectly calm, my voice steady and cold. Surprise, Lucas. Welcome to my house. Again. The color drained from Lucas's face so completely I thought he might faint. This is impossible. You're homeless. You were sleeping in your car. Not anymore, I replied with a slight smile. Funny how quickly things can change. But but we already signed. Gabrielle stammered, looking desperately at the documents on the table. Yes, you did, I confirmed. The sale is final. Lucas started to panic, his confident businessman facade crumbling entirely. Dad, please, this has to be some kind of mistake. Where did you get $400,000? Let's just say an old friend remembered me when it mattered most. This is our home, Lucas pleaded desperately. We have nowhere else to go. I looked at him with the same cold expression he'd given me that December night. Was it my home when you threw me out in the middle of winter? We'll pay you back, Lucas begged. We'll get a loan. We'll figure something out. With what collateral? I asked calmly. I know exactly how much debt you're carrying. Montgomery spoke up from his position at the table. The sale is legally binding and final. Gabrielle started crying, her earlier joy completely evaporated. Please, we don't have anywhere to go. We'll do anything. I stood up slowly, straightening my jacket. Funny. That's exactly what I said 3 weeks ago. Lucas was nearly in tears now. Dad, I'm sorry I made a terrible mistake. Yes, you did, I agreed. A very expensive mistake. I picked up my briefcase and headed for the door, then paused and looked back one final time. You have 30 days to vacate my property, I said. And Lucas, you taught me something valuable today. Sometimes the people you throw away have a funny way of landing on their feet. 2 weeks had passed since that Friday afternoon confrontation, and I was discovering a truth about revenge I hadn't expected. Revenge, I realized, tastes sweet for about 5 minutes. Then you understand that when you destroy the people you love, you're also destroying a part of yourself. I was sitting in my reclaimed living room, the same room where this whole nightmare began, when I heard the tentative knock on the front door. Through the window, I could see Lucas standing on the porch, shoulders slumped, looking more defeated than I'd ever seen him. Gabrielle stood behind him, her designer clothes replaced with simple jeans and a sweater. What do you want, Lucas? I asked when I opened the door. Dad, we need to talk. We made terrible mistakes. Lucas said, his voice barely above a whisper. We'll do anything to make this right, Gabrielle added from behind him. Anything? I asked coldly. Like when you threw your father out in the middle of winter. Lucas's eyes filled with tears. I know I hurt you. I was selfish and cruel. I forgot everything you sacrificed for me. You called me a burden, I said. Said I was worthless. We were horrible, Gabrielle said. We don't deserve forgiveness. But we're asking anyway, Lucas continued, because we're your family. I studied my son's face, looking for any trace of the arrogance that had driven me from this house. Instead, I saw genuine remorse, real pain, and something I hadn't seen in years, humility. You want my forgiveness, I said finally. Then earn it. Anything, Dad. Tell us what to do. First, a public apology at the community center. Tell everyone exactly how you treated your father. Lucas nodded immediately. Second, 100 hours volunteering at the homeless shelter. Learn what it means to serve people society has forgotten. We'll do it, Gabrielle said quickly. Third, understand what it feels like to have nothing, to depend on the kindness of strangers. And if you ever treat me like garbage again... I let the threat hang in the air. We won't, Lucas said. I swear on Mom's memory. I paused at that. Don't swear on your mother unless you mean it. The following Tuesday, more than 50 people gathered at the Denver Community Center. Lucas stood at the microphone, his voice shaking as he spoke. My name is Lucas Morgan, he began. 3 weeks ago, I threw my father out of his home, the man who raised me alone after my mother died, who sacrificed everything for my future. The crowd murmured, some in shock, others in disapproval. And I was ungrateful, selfish, and cruel. I forgot that money doesn't make you a man, character does. And my father has more character than I'll ever have. I watched from the back of the room, feeling a complex mix of pride and pain. Over the following weeks, Lucas and Gabrielle worked at the Denver Rescue Mission, serving meals and cleaning bathrooms. It was there they met Marcus and Betty, my friends, from those dark days. Your dad saved our lives, Betty told Lucas one evening. Shared his food when he barely had any. My dad was homeless, Lucas asked, stunned. He never told me. Your father's the proudest, kindest man we've ever met, Marcus said. Never complained, never gave up hope. For the first time, Lucas began to understand who his father really was. 1 month later, I called Montgomery to my office. I want to establish something, I told him. $10 million for Denver homeless services. Build a proper shelter job training programs. That's very generous, Caleb. What about Lucas? I'm giving him the house back. Montgomery raised an eyebrow. But he's paying rent to the homeless fund. Every month he'll remember what he almost lost. And if he fails to pay, then he'll learn what homelessness really means. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of the new Denver Hope Center, watching Lucas serve lunch to a line of homeless men and women. He moved with purpose, now treating each person with dignity and respect. Gabrielle worked beside him, no longer the entitled lawyer, but someone who understood service. Marcus approached me, grinning. You did good, teacher. That boy of yours learned something important. We all did, I replied. As I watched Lucas hand a warm meal to an elderly veteran, I realized something profound. The greatest inheritance isn't money, it's the values we pass down. My friend Remington was right about sharing wealth, but he forgot the most important part, sharing wisdom. Sometimes the people we love most need to lose everything to remember what really matters. Lucas learned that family isn't about blood or obligation, it's about respect, sacrifice, and love. And those lessons, unlike money, last forever. Looking back now, I want to tell everyone, don't be like Lucas was. Don't let success blind you to the people who sacrificed everything for your dreams. Don't throw away the ones who loved you unconditionally, because you might not get a second chance to make things right. This story taught me that betrayal stories, like mine, happen every day. Children forgetting their parents, families torn apart by greed and pride. But God has a way of bringing justice when we least expect it. Sometimes He uses an old friendship, sometimes unexpected inheritance, sometimes just the power of love to heal what seems broken forever. The lesson I learned. Family isn't about what people can do for you. It's about what you're willing to do for them. Lucas learned that the hard way, but thank God he learned it at all. Too many betrayal stories end without reconciliation, without growth, without hope. Remington's gift wasn't just $47 million. It was a chance to teach my son what truly matters. Money comes and goes, but character lasts forever. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It means choosing love over bitterness. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't getting revenge, it's getting your family back. These grandpa stories might sound unbelievable, but they're real. God works in mysterious ways, turning our darkest moments into opportunities for redemption. Even in betrayal stories like ours, there's always hope for healing if we're willing to do the hard work of forgiveness. That's what grandpa's stories teach us, wisdom earned through pain, love that endures through everything. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced family betrayal? How did you find your way back to love? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring grandpa stories that remind us what really matters in life.